Bill, apart from being a fabulous race caller, you also had Sunnyside Up for many years. I know as a kid watching Sunnyside Up, you used to get over the fence and give everyone a tip. They must have been marvellous days. But also, president of the South Melbourne Football Club, Bill.
Yes, I was back in 1981 when all the kerfuffle was about them going to Sydney.
What was it like being president of a football club? How easy was it, Bill?
Oh, it was anything but easy. I think it was probably the most traumatic 8 or 9 months of my life. And, after a long time, when I was asked to take over the presidency of the club, and I refused on 2 occasions, and the major players were all out on strike, and they were training by themselves over at the Footscray Technical College behind the Flemington Racecourse. And they finally came to me, not the players, the Keep South at South committee came to me and said, look, the main players are on strike. This is probably going to be the finish. Will you give it one go? And I said, all right, well, I will give it a go. For 8 or 9 months. Not. I don't want to stand forever. I just want to get the players back. So
didn't want to be Alan McAllister?
Hmm?
You didn't want to be Alan McAllister?
Oh, no, I didn't. Not that I don't admire the man, I do. But we got the players back, but it was quite evident that it was decided by much higher powers that they were going to Sydney, and that was all there was to it. Otherwise, the club, South Melbourne Club, would be disbanded. All these contracts with these players would be then broken, and a completely new club would be started up in Sydney. So it was the decision of myself and the committee at that time that it was best to go to Sydney. We'd retain the same colours, and we'd see what the future might bring. They might come back to Melbourne, we thought possible.
Bill, it doesn't seem like much has changed there when we look at Melbourne and Hawthorn today, and Fitzroy and Brisbane. So not much has changed since you've been president, I tell you.
No, and probably we were a little bit fortunate that we did go over there because we found that the club was a great deal in debt, and that the supporters they'd moved out of the South Melbourne Albert Park area. The people with lots and lots of money that could keep the club afloat. And at least there was plenty of money poured into the Swans. They were the first to go by the league, which wouldn't have happened had it been later on down the track. And I think, looking back in hindsight, it was probably the best thing.
Do you still barrack for Sydney, Bill?
Oh, look, as long as they're red and white, I'll be barracking for them.
Yeah. Bill, Eric Welsh and Jim Carroll, what are your memories of callers that for people my age are just names in books and so forth?
They are just names, but they were marvels, and they're the 2 men that set me on the path, although I didn't know them at the time. They were the 2 men that inspired me to become a racing commentator. Eric Welsh had the best voice I've ever heard, and I'm not just talking about broadcasting races, I'm talking about anybody in radio. His was the best voice I've ever heard.
Yeah.
He conducted such shows as Information Please and Reflections in a Wine Glass, etc. And he had a marvellous knowledge. He had, if there's such a thing, he had the instant memory. He could read something and then read it quickly and then know all about it and reproduce it half an hour later. Reproduce everything he'd looked at.
We hear stories about the difficulties faced by race callers in the old days, especially when they were banned from calling on track. They were up trees and on top of houses and so forth. What was your most difficult calling position? English Derby, was that one of them?
Well, the English Derby was pretty difficult for me because I didn't get any help from the BBC when I went over there for my first call. And I finished up calling it from the press box, which is about as big as the normal lounge room or something, or dining room, and it was on graduated steps, and I was up at the back. The only place I could see anything at all was up at the back on top of an old telephone box, which was at the back. One of the old red telephone boxes?
Yes.
And I lay on my stomach up there and broadcast the race with a telephonist's horn as my microphone.
Wasn't Doctor Who's telephone box, was it?
Yeah, I think it was. And I was very fortunate that I could at least see from up there everywhere but the first 2 furlongs of the race.
At least it wasn't the last 2 furlongs, Bill.
No, it was the first 2. Well, Royal Palace, I think, won the race, and he was that far in front it wouldn't have mattered.
He was ridden by Georgie
Moore rode it, yes, and Scobie Breesley ran 3rd in that year on Dartmoor. But where I was fortunate was the Royal Box was right next to the press box at Epsom, and the Queen had a television set there, so I called the first 2 furlongs of the English Derby that year, lying on my stomach and training my glasses on the Queen's television set. So that helped.
Bill Collins is our special guest on Sport 927. And Bill, just on those, you talked about some great horses there and some great Australian jockeys. And I suppose you've been asked many times, you've seen so many great horses here on the Australian turf, and with the Cups Carnival coming up now, the best horse that you've seen?
Well, the best horse I've seen is Tulloch. I haven't seen Farlap, so I can't comment. He must have been a marvellous horse, and I wouldn't argue that he's the greatest horse that ever raced. But Tulloch, as a 3-year-old, was absolutely supreme.
Mm.
He was just completely outstanding. He won the Caulfield Cup in record time. He won the Caulfield Guineas by a minute, and he was favourite for the Melbourne Cup, in which he didn't start. His owner was a Mr. Haley, who was a grazier in New South Wales. He was 83 years of age. And Mr. Haley said in scratching Tulloch that the Melbourne Cup is too big a task for a 3-year-old, any 3-year-old, not just Tulloch.
Yeah.
And I must agree with him, although I do believe that year Tulloch would have won pulling a dray.
Well, he beat a horse in the Victoria Derby, from my memory, called Prince Darius, who went down by a head to straight draw. And I think then in the autumn he beat Prince Darius by about 20 lengths in the St Ledger up there in Sydney.
Correct.
So I mean, it was something special, obviously.
Oh yeah, he was marvellous. He after a 3-year-old, he became very ill and very near died. And he came back and won races, but he was never the same as when he was a 3-year-old.
Bill,
he was a wonder.
So I remember reading in a book on race callers by one of Australia's great unheralded young riders named Steve Cairns. You speak very fondly of calling it the 3 Olympics.
Yes, I do indeed. I was fortunate to call, among other things, all the athletics at Melbourne in '56. With Ron Casey and Dan Webb, we did all the Olympics for Channel 7, which opened for the Olympics, and 3DB. And then in 1976, I did it again at Montreal, and in 1980 at Moscow.
I distinctly remember Moscow, and one of my favourite memories of Moscow, Bill, is you calling the rowing.
Oh, yeah.
Where you introduced a new margin in rowing when you said that one of the crews had won by a short half canvas.
Yeah, well, look. There was some a little bit of criticism from some of the people about my calling of the athletics, etc., the rowing, but 95% of the people that are either viewing or watching are people like you and me who are just interested and who love the sport and who like to be told in their own terms. They don't want all the technical terms. There's only about 5% of people want all the technical terms, and the purists.
When you said Betty Cuthbert's gone for the whip, that surprised a few, Bill.
Yeah. One of the interesting things was, in a race when a horse is finishing on, you say he's making ground. Well, in the rowing, you'd be very careful not to say they're making water.
Yeah.
Bill, just recently, Eddie Caruana took me out to the Sandown Greyhounds. I had a fantastic night out there. Marvellous complex. And,
it is indeed.
Just sensational. And I know you're heavily involved with the Greyhounds, and there's a lot of talk where greyhound racing is going to be, maybe in the northern or the western suburbs, because you're looking to build a new track. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we're looking continuously with Fred Abel, who's the chairman of the MGRA, whose track it was at Olympic Park. But there's been something thrown into the centre today when I read in the paper that Olympic Park has been ruled out as a possible new sports venue, and the Docklands is favourite, which means that Olympic Park might again become available. I just don't know. It's in the paper this morning.
They will have to remove those 2 trees on the home turn there.
Yeah, right, Dr. Turf, you're right.
Greyhound racing, Bill, is very popular with punters. I know at the TAB it's a rising sport.
Yes,
and it's been around for a long time.
Yes, it has. But the off-course punter, he likes to have a bet, probably because it's quick, And another thing about it, the greyhounds just jump out of the boxes and they just go hell for leather. You don't worry about a slow pace or a fast pace will suit this one and won't suit that one, and they just go.
Yeah, funny. I was reading in an English magazine the other day about greyhound racing in England, specifically at White City, and just exactly how popular it still is amongst the working classes there in England. And it reminded me of watching. I just flicking the telly on one day, and had a Norman Wisdom movie on.
Oh yeah.
That old English comedian, and there was a couple of scenes there at the greyhounds in, I guess it was White City, and really there must have been 80,000 people there.
Yeah, they had an enormous crowd.
Have you ever been to these old English dog tracks?
Yes, I have. Of course, White City is extinct now. They where the devil do they race now? can't think now, but it is a big...
It's a housing estate, White City, I think, now, isn't it?
That's right. They race on the big soccer ovals that hold a lot of people. It's not nearly as well conducted as it is here in Victoria. Mostly they only have 6 runners in a race, and some tracks have outside lures. Sometimes some tracks have lures that run on the inside, and others have lures that zigzag up and down the middle of the track. But it's all very well presented. There's no course broadcast over there.
Gee.
You just watch the race. It's a little bit like Springvale on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
A race meeting without a commentator. But it has a great tradition, and it is interesting. It's interesting to note, if you look back in the history of greyhounds, that greyhounds came out with the first fleet with Captain Cook came out to Australia. So it just goes to show that they're always highly thought of. And
was there a bookie on that first fleet, Bill?
I don't think there was a bookie unless it was an SP.
Yeah, it would have been an SP for sure.
Yeah.
There's certainly no telephone betting.
Bill,
while I'm here, I know the manager there, Noel Kroll, probably wrapped me over the knuckles, if not you, but I do want to give a little plug to this special charity Brownlow Calcutta auction we're having on September the 10th, Kevin.
Yep.
You're going to compare this for
Yes, for the Echo Foundation.
It's for the Echo Foundation, which is Holidays for Elderly Citizens, and it's in the Albert Function Centre on September the 10th, which is a Tuesday night. It's Tuesday week, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
And you're going to be there, and Gary Ablett's going to be there, and Crackers Keenan and Bobby Skilton and Lou Richards. They're all going to be there, and as our special guests. And there's going to be an auction and Calcutta and raffle prizes and everything. It's absolutely marvellous. We've got thousands and thousands of dollars worth. And why I'm mentioning this is that there are 4 tables left. And, seeing it's for a wonderful cause with all money, incidentally, is tax deductible, we'd like to fill up those 4 tables and have people go.
Where can they ring, Bill?
Well, I would reckon they should get in touch with you.
Okay.
And you can put them on to Gary Gray.
Okay. And how much is it per table, Bill?
It's $50 a person.
$50 a person, okay.
A person. So if they want a table or to come singly or, a couple of people, it's quite okay. We'd fix them all up.
Bill, thanks for joining us this morning. Just reminiscing about your wonderful career. As we said at the beginning, we know you're going through a health problem at the moment. All of your fans are with you, Bill, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you, Kevin.
And
listen,
Bill...
stick with Falonte during the Spring Carnival. It's going to win plenty of races.
I was going to say, has Mrs. Murphy got a tip for us today?
Murphy, Dr. Turf, Mrs. Murphy says stick with Falonte.
Bill Collins, thank you very much.
Thank you.